This edition of MacVoices is supported by you, our viewers and listeners, through our new Patreon campaign. If you get value from MacVoices, please consider helping support the show by visiting patreon.com/MacVoices. And by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter to keep you up on all the latest from MacVoices. Watch or listen to MacVoices straight from your email client. Sign up at macvoices.com/newsletter and stay up to date. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, it seemed like a fairly short time ago that Neil Ticktin of MacTech Conference was here to talk to us about the then upcoming MacTech Conference, and we were a little bit late getting to that and giving you information about it. So this year we're going to get an extra early jump on MacTech Conference 2018 by talking to Neil Ticktin right now. Neil, welcome. It's good to see you.
It's great to be here, Chuck. It's always a lot of fun. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving holiday in there.
Had a real good Thanksgiving holiday in there. I'm glad to see that you survived the MacTech 2017 conference because I know how organizing conferences are. It's kind of crazy, and I've heard nothing but good things about that event.
Awesome. That's good to hear.
So I assume there are no stories to tell. Nobody got out of line, but we never did find out what your cool event was. I don't think you'd. By the last time we talked, I don't think you had.
Oh, yeah. So we did an event. So traditionally, for those listeners that have not been to a MacTech conference before, the conference starts on Wednesday morning. There's a keynote. And then that evening, we will do something special. And then Thursday, we have back to sessions all day. And then Thursday night, we have the conference party. And then Friday, back to sessions more before we close at the very end of Friday. And so on the Wednesday night this year, we were able to put together this really cool panel. The whole night was about movie magic and reality. I mean, after all, we're in Los Angeles, sort of the heart of the entertainment community, and a lot of stuff that goes on in the local area. A lot of people that get interested in stuff. And so this year we had we started off with a panel, and it was a sort of a dinner panel, if you will. So people were eating dinner, and then the panel was going on, and the panel was moderated by Josh Gilliland, who is the guy that does the legal podcast, Legal Geeks podcast, and he is a great moderator, does a great job of organizing people. He doesn't just sort of answer questions; he makes sure that there's some videos and AV stuff that are go along with it, which a lot of times panels get kind of stale for that reason. And on the panel was a great group of people. There was a judge. Actually, I'm going to make sure that I don't mess up anybody's name in here because there's a few names that go along with it. There was a Ninth Circuit Court judge who is on the U.S. Court of Appeals, and his name is John Byron Owens. Great guy, total geek, loves sci-fi. And it was really interesting to hear his take on a number of things, including how, some of the legal issues that go along with sci-fi. One of my favorite questions is, are droids slaves or are they sentient beings in one form or another, right? So what is that answer? And it was something that he actually talked about, which I can come back to in a second. Also on the panel, we had Fawn Davis, who is a special effects guy. He's particularly good at bringing the real life special effects and mixing them with digital special effects. And Fawn has something like 30 feature films in his background in there. He started at ILM on Star Wars actually, but he's done things more recently like Galaxy Quest. And just a huge list of things are out there. So Fawn was a great way to hear like how they bring new movie magic together. And then on the reality side, we had Kyle Hill, who's the science editor for The Nerdist, and he's got also a show that it's called Because Science, and he's got a number of podcasts. He's really good at explaining how the science of what we see in sci-fi is somewhat real or maybe not so much real. And they're a perfect example of that most of our audience would know is that every time they do an explosion in space, it's kind of ridiculous because there's no air in space. You need air for sound. There's no sound in space. So, that would be an example of reality as opposed to the movie magic. We also had a last-minute addition, a woman named Carrie Bean, who is at NASA JPL. She works on the rovers, and she also is a droid builder. So she loves. She's definitely into sci-fi. So we had this great mix of people on the panel. People got to ask them questions. The moderator Josh got to ask them questions, and they did a really. It was really interesting, to see. And at the end, I did ask Judge Owens. Are droids are droids slaves? Are they sentient or not? And his answer was interesting. His answer was, well, it really depends on where they're at, because the jurisdiction that they're in has different laws. And if the laws say that droids are legal, then are slaves, then they're slaves. And if the jurisdiction says droids are free and sentient, then they're free and sentient. Which is interesting. I mean, you can vary from culture to culture.
Yeah. Huh.
So anyway, that after the panel, Fawn did this long talk about special effects. He talked for a good 45 minutes or an hour talking about how they make special effects and what happens with speed and how that increases the perception or decreases the perception of size, as an example in there. So some of the tricks they use in doing special effects photography, some of the things they do to blend things together on the digital side. So it was really very cool to hear. After that, we had a demonstration by Genevieve Marie, she's definitely a self-described nerd and cosplayer. She's a model actually as well, but she was there representing fight choreography. So she was basically, they have a company called Creative Combat, and so they showed this is how we choreograph a fight. And they would take fight sabers, which are sort of like long wooden lightsabers. Obviously, they're not lighting up; they're a stick like a sword, right? And they take fight sabers and they would show, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and then that's how they would go through and choreograph. And they gave a demonstration up on the stage that this is how they go about doing it. And then we ended the presentation part of it. And in the back of the room, we had JPL with a whole bunch of displays talking about their current programs, including the upcoming InSight rover that's going to be launched in the spring, and how that's going to go down. Fawn was there with a bunch of little models of things that they had done and built as props for movies that everybody has seen and knew about, talking about how they did that. And then over in the corner, if people wanted to, Genevieve would go and Victor, who was with her, would go and actually teach people fight choreography. So they'd hand each of them a fight saber, and you'd have this line of geeks that are up in front, and Genevieve's out in front of them and saying, okay, this is position number 1, and this is position number 2, and that she'd go through these standard positions that they teach people to do. And so you see these notables that in our industry with a fight saber in hand, learning how to do the special effects fighting. It was hilarious to do. And then that actually went on for hours. People were loved it so much it just kept going and going and going, the fight saber stuff. But while that was going on, we aired an episode. We aired Star Wars Episode 7, because 1 month from that night is when Episode 8 and the next Star Wars is coming out. So we figured, let's make sure that 7 is fresh in everybody's mind. It was it's a nice theater at that hotel. It was a great way to kind of just wind down the evening and enjoy it with some friends, and that was what we did that. So it was a lot of fun. It
sounds like it. I'm just picturing a bunch of geeks with fight sabers and what could go wrong? So
nothing at all.
Nothing. Well, I'm glad.
Yeah, nothing at all goes wrong.
Just don't want anybody to get.
You're into the insurance industry. I have nothing to report. Anything going wrong.
I was going to say, I just glad nobody got too much into character. That's
exactly.
I wanted to make sure we got you on there, Neil, really early, because you and I talked about trying to attend these conferences and putting them on your schedules, which is always a challenge for me at the particular time that MacTech often is. So let's get an early start on it. And I don't know if you've established dates yet, or
we have,
or anything.
I want to make sure I say it right, because I haven't said it a million times yet, and I want to make sure that we have it right there. But next year's MacTech Conference will be on November 7, 8, and 9. So that's the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of that week. And this is 2018, obviously.
Right.
And then on November 6th, the Tuesday, we'll have the full day pre-conference workshops that we've come to do at this point, which people really like. They're hands-on. It's a very deep dive on a topic all day long. And I've heard nothing but good things about the workshops that we had this year. Well, and I expect that to continue next year.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, listen, you've been doing these for how many years?
That was the 8th year of MacTech Conference. But if you remember, we actually used to run the pavilions for IDG at Macworld Expo. So those special interest areas, when they were between, I think it was 1995 and 2005, about 10 years in there, we ran those pavilions. At one point, over 40% of the exhibitors on the show floor were under our management on behalf of IDG at Macworld Expo. We also used to run the exhibit fair at WWDC when that was around until it got so big, until the event got so big they needed every square foot for people to be able to attend and for sessions and things along those lines. We did that for Apple for about a decade, and it was a really neat experience. But we've done events all throughout the industry, even outside the Apple market, even outside the computer industry. So we, in the company, we probably have, I'm going to pull a number out of the year, 75, maybe even 100 years of experience amongst the senior management on events.
Well, I know I've never heard any detracting comments from any of the MacTech conferences, whether it was the main one or the ones that you do around events. The country. Yeah. So, I think it's pretty safe to say that if you're into this and you go, you will have a great experience. Because, and as we talked about before, you really work hard on the experience part of it, not just the technical parts of it. And I know it's way too early to announce speakers or topics or anything. What should people know if they're thinking right now about, maybe I'll consider MacTech coming in 2018?
Couple of things. So the first thing, we have the date, so you know when that is. It's this is now 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, so it'll be after before that Thanksgiving holiday. It's not in the middle of Halloween. It's a nice place to be on it. There's a couple of elections that'll happen during that time, but people can do absentee ballot and that'll work fine. But basically, we're avoiding some of the holidays that are an issue for some of the government sectors and education, like Veterans Day and things like that. So, but this is the first event typically where you see Apple. Apple makes a bunch of announcements at WWDC. And as the summer goes on, and really as the fall goes on, they start to release a bunch of stuff, OSs, phones, and whatnot. MacTech Conference has traditionally been the first major event after all of those things have happened, after all of the products shipped. So like this was the first event after the iPhone 10 shipped, and as you saw the new OSs have a little bit of a chance to take hold and whatnot. So it's, in my mind, Apple sets the vision, and the conference is sort of the where rubber meets the road, or the reality of the situation that's there, where you get to actually go, okay, these are the problems we're experiencing. How did you deal with them? And there's that conversation. And yes, we always have and always will focus on relationship generation and the experience. The reason that the event has a tagline of, the people, the content, the experience, is because that's what is our goal. And I have a saying that when I stand up on stage at the end of the event, in our mind, if we can fill your mind, fill your stomach, have a whole lot of fun in the process, and send you home exhausted, then we did our job. If you do those 4 things, and we have tried to do that every year, and we did it again this year, people have a good experience. That's what that's all about. So what are we going to see for 2018? Well, one of the things that we did this year that was really cool is there are people that are in the industry that are on the enterprise side, and there are people that are on the consultant side. The difference is, do you work for a company, and that company, and you're supporting the people in that organization, or do you work for yourself or work for a consulting company that serves many other clients that are out there? Often the technologies are the same between the two. Often the way you'd go about doing it are the same between the other two. But what you sometimes see is you'll see a difference. You'll see words like profit that are for a consultant. And really what it's about is productivity for the enterprise. And they're the same thing. They do the same thing. And we have to deal with this challenge at both our pro events and our regional events, as well as the main conference. So this year, we brought on Andy Espo as a co-sessions chair for the event. So we had lots of hands in and trying to figure out like what would be the best content out there. And we came up with a mix of topics that was not only good for enterprise, as it has been for the last 8 years, but it was exceptionally good for consultants. We've done a good job for consultants all along, but this year we did such a good job that even the enterprise people were looking at the consultant content and going, I want to go to that session. And there was lots of crossover in between the two tracks as people went on. That means they had a problem of riches, if you will, as to too much content, more than they could possibly, go to see. And frankly, that's what we should be doing as an event organizer. If we give them just the right amount, we needed to do a little bit more, than that. We want them to have every session be useful to them, and have them have choices of sessions. And I think that was well done this year, and we're going to do the same thing for next year. So consultants, IT pros, enterprise, if you're a tech supporting Apple users or people using Apple technologies, this will be a good event for you in 2018.
I don't know if this is on the agenda yet or not, but how do the regional conferences compare to the main conference? Is there a lot of overlap? If I decide to go to one wherever it is closer to me, does that mean I should forgo the main MacTech conference?
No. Different topics, different content. The difference between a one-day event, at a 3-day event, there's a lot you can do on the relationship building side that is really incredible. Now that said, there's some stuff you can do on the for the one-day regional events too. There's this one guy who I think every MacTech regional event that he's been to, he's walked away with a job offer on it. He actually isn't looking for a job. He has no interest in it. He never takes them. Kind of thing, but it's just a great networking, event for people to be able to do. But the networking, it's not so much about job offers, because that you don't see as much of that as you do people forming partnerships and relationships, and people forming relationships on technology levels. So two people will meet, and then later on they'll in email or Twitter or Slack or whatever the case may be. There might be interchanges that are going on, and because they have that face-to-face relationship, it makes the virtual relationship for the rest of the year all good. And so what we will do with the regional events is we will pick topics that are best serving, the more regional nature of it, where we can't, have 2 tracks, we can't have 3 days, we can't spread our wings a little bit and do, if we're doing command line stuff, we can't do 3, 4, 5 sessions on command line oriented, gems and tricks and jewels and bringing people up to speed. We can't do, that many sessions on deployment, because that would be a deployment event, or that would be a command line event. It wouldn't be, MacTech Pro. So we tend to choose a potpourri of topics that are the hot topics that we think are coming for the coming year, and we put it into terms that people can understand, and we do that in a way that they can take off a day and go and see. Now, if you went to a MacTech Pro event this year, you wouldn't have seen really any duplication of content in conference. And even if there was something that had a little bit of overlap to it, there was another track to go to. So you really, if you can go to both, go to both. If you can go to one, go to one. But there are different experiences between the two, because there's only so much you can do in one day. But sometimes one day is all people have.
Yeah. For the regionals, Neil, is the regional just a situation where it's like a traveling road show that you put on the show in City 1, then you move it over and do the same thing in City 2, or do they evolve as the year goes on?
I guess I would say both.
Why am I not surprised?
We choose the topics with our curriculum council and by interviewing people. We're about to do a survey out for people that have been to MacTech events maybe in the past, and we asking them which topics would they like to see for 2018. We got suggestions. Now's a good time to do that. So we set out, here are the topics that we are going to do. And the curriculum council, which is 20, 30 people, something like that, people that are noticeable in industries, help with the outline for what those what needs to be covered in it. Sort of what's the expectation of somebody who's going to this session, what they should see. And when we do that, we then have sessions chairs that are in each city, and they help identify speakers in those cities that are good at the topics that we're talking about, and that can stand up and take a look at the outline and say, okay, these are the things we want to cover, and they'll go ahead and explain them, and they'll often add their own color and whatnot to it. Now, as the year goes on, because this is the technology industry, things change. And so there is, I'm not going to call it an evolution, but we're continually changing with what the technologies change. So if Apple announces a bunch of stuff in, say, May, then we're going to be maybe talking about some of that stuff that would be, after the May, in June, after the June event. I just dated myself with WWDC being in May. But basically if they're doing stuff in June, we may want to add some more things to it. So there is change. Every city has unique presentations, but the lineup of the topics and the base outline for those topics is similar from one city to the next.
Okay, so
one more thing.
Yeah.
We have a series of people that are often national speakers that will speak at multiple events and will go with us. So we have this sort of mix between some regional folks and some national folks. But, it's interesting. The regional stuff is interesting because the average MacTech Pro event has people coming from like 10 states. It's not just somebody in that city. And It's not meant to be that. It's meant to be a regional event for your area overall. And the networking that you get at that event becomes different as a result. So when you're a consultant or you're an IT pro and you come to a regional event, you're going to meet other people from your region, people that are close enough to travel if you need them to help you with a project or whatever the case may be, or you want to work on a project together on it. Often at conference, you're talking about people at opposite ends of the country or from around the world or whatnot. So that might be a little bit tougher to do, but you'll expand your network at a more global level, which is very cool. So there's that mix as well.
Is it too early to talk about dates and locations for the regionals at this point?
We are very close to announcing these. There will be 9 cities this year. They will be within reach of everybody in the country that wants to go to a MacTech Pro event. It'll be often people call the city list the NFL cities, if you will. I'm not sure that's entirely accurate in it, but the idea is that it needs to be a major city so that people can fly into it. It needs to be something in a place that makes sense. And so we have last year's event. Just to keep myself a little bit safe here, last year we went to Denver, San Francisco, Seattle, Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York, Atlanta, and Orlando. I think that was 9. And the cities this year, will be safe. We may look at, instead of in specific, we go back and forth between being on Manhattan or being on Long Island. Maybe this year will be more to the New Jersey side. I don't know, but somewhere in that New York, New Jersey, area will be where that is. And certainly, if I can fly across the country to go to it, then people can go from Long Island to New Jersey or vice versa. But it's a regional event. It's not meant to be your neighbor event. It's not a mug. It's a regional event, multi-state regional event.
Okay.
So we'll see those very quickly in here. With the cities and the dates announced, we're pretty close to doing that. People can check that out at pro.mactech.com if they see this down the road and they want to know where they can go look. Conference, we've set the dates for already. And one thing that's going on right now for conference is there is what we call our special early rate, which is basically if you want to go to conference, and that you want to, you want to get the best price possible, you need to do that by December 15th of this year. And so for $8.99 for the 3 days, you will get all the sessions, all the activities, all the food. There's 13 times that we feed people in that 3 days that's there. You'll be able to be first up to get hotel reservations. You'll be first up to get pre-conference workshops if you want to add a pre-conference workshop. But if you want the best rate for conference, it's that that super early or special early rate that'll be ending on December 15th. You can use up this year's budget. You can use up, you want to be tax optimized for the end of the year. If you're a consulting firm or you're trying to go down that path, this is a good way to do it so that it takes care of your 2018. The event, the closer we get to the event, the more expensive it will be. I mean, it reflects how the event industry works in many ways, right? And so this is a way for people to get the best rate and the best value, hands down, on it. It will be in Los Angeles next year. It's been in Los Angeles each year so far. And when we get the surveys back, we'll look and see what people thought about the hotel. Do they like being, do they want to be near the airport? Do they want to be farther from the airport? Do they like the food? Things along those lines and then we'll make a decision much earlier this year than we did much earlier for 2018 than we did for this year in doing so for some of the reasons that we discussed earlier. But basically, we'll be making that hotel decision here hopefully sooner rather than later. But it will be in Los Angeles. We'll negotiate a special hotel rate for it. It'll be a good way for people to go.
Yeah, I want to make sure we were very clear on that. So the early registration is, as you said, for the conference. That also includes the food. It does not include a hotel room.
Does not include a hotel room because, well, the vast majority of people do not come from the local area or Southern California. There are some that do.
Right.
And some people, we find a lot of people come in the weekend before. They stay through the whole week, and then they stay the weekend after, or they add on a weekend in one form or another. So we just let people negotiate the best rates we can with the hotel, and then we let people make up their mind as to what they want to do for the hotel. But clearly, if you're coming to this event, you want to be at the hotel. It's the most integrated experience. It's where you'll get the most networking. It allows you time with your peers, and if you're there at the hotel, all the logistics really kind of go away for you.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure because it's part of me. Yeah, I guess it makes sense. You've since you include dinners and all, it just seems a little strange. Not strange. It just needs to be explained that the hotel is not part of the deal.
It's interesting. There's a lot of organizations that are not allowed to purchase badges that or admission that include hotel. They want that separated out. So but nevertheless, it gives people the ability to budget and choose the way that they want to. Do they want to take an early morning flight and be there Wednesday morning in time for the keynote and whatnot? They can do that. If they want to, be there a couple days earlier and go to the pre-conference workshop and get themselves settled in, they can do that. So it just allows people the flexibility to do it. Remember, conference is very much a national or even international event, right? In most cases, for most conferences, and including many that we're well familiar with, something like 85% of the people come from within about 300 to 500 miles for those events. That's a standard thing for all events and industries. It's not just an IT thing, and we see it a lot in our market as well. Now, MacTech Conference is the inverse of that. People are coming to be immersed. They're coming to be a part of it. So often they are at the hotel,
right, and
not many people are driving in.
Right. So the website where folks can go to see all the information that's available as it's available now and continues to be updated is
conference.mactech.com.
And the website for the Pro Conference, the Pro Regionals, is
pro.mactech.com.
Perfect. Neil, I hope this is the first of a whole lot of conversations we have this year as different information comes out and you're willing and able to share. Sometimes I think you're just not willing. You like to tease us.
We like to actually release the information when the pieces have come together for it. Okay. And sometimes we're waiting for a piece of information or a confirmation on something, or there's something else that might change down the road. So usually we release the information. We like to release the information realistically as soon as we can after it's together. People go, can you give me an early preview? It's like, no, we really don't want to. And there's a reason for it, right?
Yeah.
It's funny because people will say, can you tell us the schedule? Well, I can tell you that, when breakfast, lunch, and dinner are more or less, right? But, often the session schedule is very fluid. And in order to have it be the best schedule possible, it kind of gets tweaked all the way up to the last minute. We literally made changes to the session schedule, I would say, in the 24 to 48 hours prior to the event. You'll get we had one speaker this year who couldn't attend for reasons outside of us that were there. I don't know that he wants necessarily stuff to disclose, but it was he basically, he was not able to attend the event. We totally supported him in being it. We were sorry to not see him there. He's a great speaker on it. But when you have over 40 speakers at an event, something like that will happen.
Absolutely.
And so, it's interesting to see.
Yeah, trying to guarantee stuff that far out is crazy. I mean, as you said, there are always, unfortunately, accidents, deaths. Things happen that just come out of the blue, and you just have to adapt. So,
it's interesting. At this point, I haven't looked at how many meals we've done, but we've served well over 35,000 meals at MacTech events in the last 8 years. It's got to be close to 40 at this point, something in that category. And we have done, if you count all the accreditations and all the different things that you could register for, we've done well over 100 events in the last 8 years. And we've had over 350 unique individuals speak at our events. And this year at conference, we delivered our 1,000th session of content, which is a gargantuan, massive number.
Yeah.
Now, with all of those kinds of things behind you, I could tell you story after story after story of things that have happened, where something, went awry with a speaker. I had one speaker that there was, through absolutely no malice or forethought, nothing, they just didn't understand what the topic was. They never saw this one email that talked to them about it, and they didn't realize that. And they started talking about the wrong topic. And this is years ago. And so we like a few minutes into this go, oh my God. And we start to realize he actually didn't know. And it was not correct. So it was somebody, we needed to stop it because it was not the right topic and it was going to be a problem that was there. It was not the right content for this event. And so we had the content from the previous event from another city. And we had sort of an all-star team showing up at this event anyway, a lot of the speakers. And so on the fly, now mind you, this whole thing happened in 5 minutes from when the guy started to when we stopped him. On the fly, we picked the people who knew about this topic from our speakers that were in the room. We had the slide deck from the previous event. We did the presentation with a group, with using the mic as a talking stick between these guys out there, and very politely pulled the guy off the stage. And he was cool with it. It was nothing he was in there. Yeah. And there's nothing he really did wrong. It was something that happened many, many years ago. I think it happened in the second year of the event. And you learn about these stories. But that event with the talking stick with those guys in there was one of the best sessions of the day. It turned out to be phenomenal with this group of individuals. And so you can have these things that happen, and you just have to make them go away and make it a good experience.
Yeah.
So.
Well, hopefully everything will go a little smoother than that this year, but we will hear more about it as we go through 2018 and approach it.
Yep.
And it's always great to see you, Neil. Thank you so much for the time. And
my pleasure.
If I don't talk to you before, have a great holiday.
And you too.
Thank you. Folks, this is MacVoices. I'm Chuck Joyner. Hope you have a great holiday as well. Hope you will take a good hard look at the MacTech Conference 2018, as well as the regional pro conferences once we know where they are and what they will cover. These are great events, and there's nothing like, first of all, getting educated, but also connecting with your peers and making those connections. That seems to be something we hear all over the place about every conference that MacVoices talks about or covers, that it really is about the people. And so get out there and do it. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our MacVoices Facebook group and get more out of your Apple Tech with MacVoices magazine, free on Flipboard. And if you find value in it all, Consider supporting us at patreon.com/MacVoices and join these folks who help keep MacVoices coming to you. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.